The world did not ease him into ruin. It hurled him headfirst. Ethan Parker scrolled through his phone, his name trending with venom. The hashtag #erasure glowed like fire, consuming every corner of the screen. Headlines screamed betrayal. "Monster in disguise," one declared. Commenters spat outrage, strangers calling for his career to be buried. Ethan whispered, "This isn't real." But reality clawed deeper as clips of him, twisted and falsified, spread without mercy. His chest tightened as friends riposted with silence. Allies turned ghosts. His voice cracked. "I didn't do this," but no one listened. Each notification vibrated like a hammer. Every ding stripped another piece of his youth. The humiliation was not a storm he could wait out. It was fire, and he was bound inside its blaze. By morning, the internet had become a courtroom with no judge, no jury, only executioners. Ethan's face filled feeds, tagged with words he never deserved. His name was weaponized. A headline turned into entertainment. He scrolled through oceans of strangers declaring him guilty. Some claimed they always knew. Others demanded he vanish forever. Ethan whispered, "They don't even know me." His bedroom felt smaller, suffocating, the walls closing in with every notification. Outside, life carried on. Neighbors laughed, cars honked, birds chirped. But for Ethan, the world had ended in silence. He stared at his phone as if searching for one voice, one defense that would never come. The news anchors spoke with polished cruelty, their voices smooth as knives. Former child star Ethan Parker accused, one began, while another smiled faintly as if scandal were sport. Ethan's footage flashed on TV screens across diners, gyms, and airports. His laughter from years ago replayed beside headlines of horror. "They turned me into a villain," Ethan muttered. At school, kids whispered, replaying clips that weren't true. His classmates didn't ask questions, they shared posts. Each rumor was a brick in the wall rising around him, sealing him away from the world he once belonged to. It spread faster than fire. Memes, jokes, parodies built on his ruin. Strangers wore his downfall like armor against their own fears. Ethan scrolled through laughing faces mocking his pain. He muttered, "I'm not even human to them." Friends vanished from his inbox. "I'm old." No one asked if it was true. They were too busy surviving by cutting ties. His chest burned, not just from lies, but from abandonment. Betrayal wasn't loud. It was silence. And silence was louder than hate. His phone buzzed again, another cruel message, and he pressed it against his chest as though trying to crush the noise. That night, Ethan sat by his window, city lights blinking far away, a world that no longer felt reachable. His reflection stared back at him in the glass. Same boy, but stripped of everything. "Why me?" he whispered. His chest rose and fell unevenly, his body trembling though the room was still. Behind him the glow of screens pulsed like eyes, reminding him he couldn't escape. Ethan pressed his forehead to the cool window pane, wishing for silence, wishing for someone to believe. But the night offered no answer, only the echo of his name turning to ash across millions of mouths. Before the storm, Ethan Parker had been a dreamer. He remembered the first audition at 9 years old, clutching a worn script with sweaty palms. His mother whispered, "You've got this." When he stepped onto that stage, the lights blinded him, but his smile carried the room. That boy was hopeful, innocent, craving nothing but the joy of performance. Years later, directors called him a natural, fans mailed letters saying he saved their lives. "I was someone's hero," Ethan murmured, staring at his reflection. He thought about that boy who believed the world was kind. Now, the same world was devouring him without pause. The gap between who he had been and who they painted him as felt like a chasm too wide to cross. Fame didn't come with warning labels, it came with flashing cameras and endless smiles. Ethan at 13 grinned on red carpets, tuxedo too big for his frame, reporters calling his name. He waved shyly, cheeks flushed, heart racing. The world saw a polished star, not a child who still dreamt of comic books and late-night video games. They loved me then, he whispered. Fans reached out through velvet ropes, and he shook hands like he was giving pieces of himself away. That boy never imagined the same crowds would one day jeer. In the noise of that memory, Ethan found a reminder. He had been real. And he had mattered. The tragedy was not just what they called him now, but how easily they forgot the boy who only wanted to shine. Home had been his safe place, the one stage without critics. Ethan at 15 sat at the family dinner table, laughing with his sister Lily as their father joked badly. His mother smiled proudly, eyes warm. In those moments he was just Ethan, not a headline. He remembered Lily saying, "You'll always be my annoying brother, not a star." He had laughed until his ribs hurt. Now those dinners felt like relics from another world. His phone buzzed beside him, showing silence from the same people who once filled the room with love. "Why can't they speak now?" he muttered, voice cracking. The family who once cheered his every step now hid behind fear, and Ethan was left aching for voices that had once made him whole. He stared at old fan mail stacked in shoeboxes, letters written in shaky handwriting. Notes said, "You make me feel less alone," or "You gave me hope." Ethan touched the paper, tracing words like lifelines. Back then he felt connected, like his existence mattered to someone out there. "They believed in me once," he whispered. The memory was sharp against the silence of his inbox now. No messages of support, only accusations. He wondered if those same fans tore down the boy they had lifted so high. The weight of betrayal was heavier when it came from people who once called you savior. Ethan clutched a letter to his chest, his tears smudging ink written years ago, words that once gave him wings now breaking his heart. The mirror reflected a stranger. Ethan leaned closer, searching for the boy who once danced under stage lights. "Where did you go?" he asked softly. The fame that once felt like wings now felt like shackles. His eyes were hollow, his smile long gone. He pressed a hand to the glass, whispering to his reflection, "I'm still me." Yet the internet had rewritten him as villain, erasing every good memory, every achievement. He could feel the ghost of applause, now replaced by digital jeers. Ethan exhaled, shoulders slumping, realizing he could no longer recognize the person staring back. The human boy was lost beneath the monster they created. In that reflection, he saw not who he was, but who the world demanded him to be. The first to vanish were the sponsors, their silence colder than accusations. Ethan Parker opened his inbox to a flood of sterile messages, each one starting with regret, but ending with rejection. The brands that once showcased his smile in bright ads now scrubbed him clean from their feeds, as if he had never existed. His image disappeared from glossy posters in malls, replaced overnight with brighter, safer faces. Ethan muttered, "I gave them everything," but his words vanished in the empty room. To companies that praised him as their golden boy, he was now a liability to be erased. His phone buzzed with reminders of campaigns that had once paid for his family's security. Now, they dissolved like smoke. Ethan's chest ached, realizing fame was never loyalty, it was currency, and he had been spent. Not long after, friends followed the sponsors into silence, leaving Ethan to drown alone. The group chats where his phone once buzzed with laughter now ignored his messages, gray bubbles hanging like ghosts. He stared at Michael's feed, his best friend's smile bright at a party, his absence unacknowledged. Ethan whispered, "You too," while scrolling endlessly, hoping for one defense, one message of loyalty. None came. Betrayal was not always loud. It often lived in silence. No arguments, no explanations, just erasure. He remembered the nights when Michael swore they were brothers, promises sealed with laughter and trust. Now that bond was erased with a swipe, buried beneath the fear of association. Ethan pressed his phone against his forehead, trembling, the weight of abandonment sharper than any public hate. Even home, the last place of safety, fractured under the weight of public disgrace. Ethan sat at the dinner table with his family, the air thick with unspoken fear. His father cleared his throat, fork tapping against plate, but words refused to form. His mother stared down, pushing food in circles, avoiding his gaze. Lily glanced at him once, her eyes filled with confusion, before lowering her head again. "Say something," Ethan muttered, his voice cracking, but silence pressed harder. Their love felt smothered by the fear of being dragged into his storm. He remembered dinners filled with laughter, now replaced with heavy breaths and scraping cutlery. Betrayal cut deepest when it came not from enemies, but from the silence of those meant to defend you. That silence became Ethan's prison. Rumors bloomed like weeds, each more poisonous than the last. Ethan scrolled through posts where his old jokes, ripped out of context, became accusations of cruelty. Screenshots spread faster than truth, captions painting him as villain. "That's not what I meant," he whispered, throat tight. Every word he once typed in innocence now twisted into evidence for crimes he never committed. The mob did not need proof. They needed fire. His past was no longer his. It had been seized and weaponized. Each repost felt like stones hurled through his window, breaking more than glass. Ethan pressed his palms to his temples, shaking, as images of himself warped into memes filled the screen. They weren't laughing with him anymore. They were laughing at him. The boy who once inspired was now a cautionary tale. The spiral never slowed, it only accelerated. Each day carried fresh cruelty, a new headline, another rumor, more silence. Ethan sat on the floor with his phone, drafting a message to defend himself, words shaky on the screen. He hovered over send, heart racing. "They won't listen," he muttered, thumb trembling. He deleted it, then typed again, desperation clawing at him. The truth felt useless when buried under millions of voices, calling for his erasure. His breaths grew uneven, the weight of the storm pressing against his chest. The boy who once stood before cheering crowds now sat alone, afraid of his own voice. He realized the world did not want him innocent, it wanted him destroyed. Ethan's silence was not choice, it was survival, and survival had never felt this much like surrender. The betrayal revealed itself not in fire but in whispers. Ethan Parker discovered a thread exposing that the first viral clip was leaked by someone he trusted. The account tied back to Rachel Miles, a former co-star who had once hugged him backstage after shows. "She did this," he muttered, eyes wide with disbelief. Rachel, smiling in interviews, claimed to be disgusted by Ethan, her words fueling the mob. But hidden in metadata, an IP address connected her to the original upload. Betrayal was no longer faceless. It had a name, and it cut deeper than strangers' hate. Ethan's breath hitched, rage colliding with sorrow, because Rachel had once been family, not rival. Her knife was sharper because he never saw it coming. Rachel had been jealous for years, though Ethan never noticed. She auditioned alongside him, always cast in smaller roles while he became the star. Interviews surfaced of Rachel smiling while saying, "I hope people see the truth about him." Ethan whispered, "You wanted my life." The realization struck. The betrayal wasn't random, it was calculated. The mob had been manipulated, her ambition fueling his ruin. Ethan stared at old photos of them laughing together, her hand on his shoulder, her smile radiant. He saw now what he had missed then. A shadow in her eyes, envy dressed as friendship. Rage swelled inside him, not just at Rachel but at himself for never seeing it. The knife had always been in her hand, waiting for the moment to cut. But truth had its keepers. An overlooked figure, Daniel Carter, a quiet technician, held information that could shatter the false narrative. Ethan stumbled across Daniel's anonymous post buried in a forum, timestamps proving the clip was doctored. "This isn't real," Ethan whispered, relief trembling in his voice. Daniel had been dismissed by others, ignored because he was no celebrity. But in silence he had kept the proof. The outsider's courage to speak now meant Ethan was not entirely alone. Hope flickered, fragile yet alive. Ethan realized the truth existed, but it was small against the thunder of lies. Would anyone care? Would anyone listen? Or would Daniel's words drown in the storm like his own? For the first time Ethan saw a path, however faint, out of the darkness. The mob had judged too quickly. Ethan scrolled through posts demanding his destruction, knowing now the foundation was false. "You destroyed me for something I never did," he whispered, voice breaking. Screens flashed with Rachel's interviews, her words venom disguised as innocence. Meanwhile, Daniel's proof barely gained traction, drowned beneath louder lies. Ethan realized society did not want truth. It wanted drama. The twist was not that he was innocent, but that innocence might not matter. The world thrived on ruin, not redemption. His story wasn't about guilt, it was about spectacle. Ethan pressed his palms flat against the desk, trembling. If truth had no weight, then survival wasn't about being right. It was about outlasting their hunger for his fall. For the first time, Ethan questioned not himself but the world. They had condemned him without proof, silenced him without listening, and now the revelation showed they were wrong. Yet no apology came, no retraction, only silence. "You never wanted truth," Ethan muttered, voice heavy with fury. Rachel gained sympathy, the mob gained entertainment, sponsors gained safety. But Ethan lost everything. The twist was cruel. He was innocent, yet still erased. He realized redemption was not guaranteed, even with truth in hand. The world would not repair what it broke. And Ethan, staring into his reflection once more, whispered, "You wanted a monster, so you made one." His innocence had been stolen, but the weight of betrayal remained his to carry. The breaking point came when Ethan Parker confronted Rachel Miles at a press event. She stood poised before cameras, her smile rehearsed, her lies polished. Ethan's heart thundered as he pushed through the crowd. "Why?" he demanded, his voice raw, almost breaking. Rachel's eyes flickered, but she masked it quickly with feigned innocence. Reporters swiveled their cameras, the flash like lightning. "He's unstable," she muttered coldly, her words aimed not at him but the mob waiting online. Ethan clenched his fists, body shaking. "You ruined me!" he shouted, voice carrying across the room. For the first time, silence followed. No tweets, no laughter, only the sound of truth tearing through lies. His rage cracked open the facade, exposing the ugliness that had been hidden beneath her smile. The meltdown spread like wildfire. Ethan's voice trembled, breaking into tears as he yelled, "I didn't do this." His chest heaved, veins visible on his neck as the cameras devoured every second. The crowd gasped, some pitying, others smirking at his collapse. His knees buckled, but he forced himself upright, defiance flickering in his bloodshot eyes. The footage streamed online instantly, captions mocking his pain. "Ethan loses it." Yet behind the breakdown lived something raw, his humanity breaking free of the performance. "I'm still human," he cried, his voice shattering. The silence after was heavier than noise, his words lingering like smoke. Ethan's soul had been laid bare, and though the world twisted it, for a fleeting second, they saw him truly him. Through the chaos, one voice rose in his defense. Emily Carter, his loyal friend, pushed past reporters, placing herself between Ethan and the mob. "He's telling the truth," she declared, her voice steady, though fear flickered in her eyes. Ethan stared at her, stunned by the risk she took. Cameras turned to Emily, searching for weakness, but she did not waver. "You can't destroy someone with lies," she continued, her hand gripping Ethan's arm like an anchor. He whispered, "Why are you here?" She answered softly, "Because you're not alone." Her defiance painted a different story, a spark of loyalty in a sea of betrayal. For Ethan, it was the first flicker of light in endless darkness. But even in the moment of defense, the sharpest wound came from silence. His father stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, eyes downcast. Ethan's heart clenched. "Say something," he whispered, but no reply came. His family's silence felt like abandonment in its cruelest form. The absence of defense stung more than Rachel's betrayal or the mob's cruelty. It was as if they had chosen safety over blood, survival over love. Ethan's body trembled, his gaze locked on the man who should have spoken, but remained stone. The silence screamed louder than any headline, louder than every hashtag. Ethan realized betrayal didn't always come in words. It often came in what was left unsaid. The climax exploded when Ethan turned back to the crowd, voice breaking yet burning with defiance. "You want a monster," he shouted. "Then look at yourselves." His words ricocheted through the room, sharper than any lie Rachel had spun. The crowd fell silent, not out of respect but shock, cameras freezing mid-flash. Ethan's body shook, his breath ragged but his eyes burned with fury. For a moment, the mob was not sure if they had destroyed him or awakened something they could not control. His pain became a weapon, his shame transformed into defiance. The boy they erased stood, cracked, but unbroken. His words left a scar, and the silence that followed was the loudest moment of his life. The fallout spread instantly. Ethan Parker's breakdown and defiance filled every feed, clips dissected by strangers, searching for meaning or mockery. Some called him brave, others unstable, most treated it as spectacle. His face was replayed like entertainment, stripped of humanity. Ethan sat in his bedroom afterward, scrolling through reactions. A few comments whispered support, drowned beneath the noise. "It still doesn't matter," he muttered, voice hollow. The world had moved on to the next scandal, leaving his life in ruins. What burned wasn't just their hate, it was how quickly they forgot. Ethan's pain became yesterday's content, but for him it was still today, and tomorrow, and every day after. Alone, Ethan faced himself. He stood before the mirror, red-rimmed eyes staring at a reflection he no longer recognized. "Who are you now?" he whispered. His body trembled, not from rage but exhaustion. Fame had given him a crown made of glass, and cancellation had crushed it into shards. His reflection felt both stranger and enemy, carrying scars invisible to the world. He pressed his hand against the glass, the boy he once knew fading into the cracks. "You can't go back," he muttered, his voice breaking. For the first time, Ethan realized survival didn't mean restoring what was lost. It meant learning to live in ruins. Outside, the world moved without him. Ethan walked through the city streets at dusk, hood pulled low, watching life go on. People laughed in cafes, couples held hands, kids skateboarded in the park. No one recognized him, or if they did, they chose to look away. He felt invisible, and yet every whisper sounded like his name. "Do they see me, or just a lie?" he thought. Passing a newsstand, his face stared back from the cover, words twisting his truth again. He shoved the paper aside, heart pounding. The world hadn't ended, but his world had. And in that cruel paradox, he realized the true punishment. Life kept going, just without him in it. In the quiet of night, Ethan returned to the shoebox of fan letters. He pulled one out, written by a child years ago. "You made me feel like I mattered." His hands shook as he read it, tears blurring the ink. "I used to matter," he whispered. The letters felt like artifacts from another life, proof that he once gave hope to others. Now he was the one who needed saving, yet no one came. He pressed the paper to his chest, remembering the laughter, the stage lights, the cheers. None of it could protect him now, but it reminded him he was not always what they made him. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe he was more than their lie. Ethan sat on the rooftop, city lights stretching endlessly, stars faint above. He breathed deeply, chest heavy but steady. "You took everything," he whispered into the wind, "but I'm still here." His voice was tired, yet there was steel buried inside. He didn't know what tomorrow held, redemption, silence, or further ruin. But for now, he existed. The mob could erase his name from screens, but not the heartbeat still pulsing in his chest. His survival wasn't victory, but it was defiance. The boy they tried to destroy remained, scarred yet alive. And that alone was a kind of resistance. The truth finally emerged, but not as thunder, just a whisper. Daniel Carter's evidence surfaced in a quiet blog post, screenshots proving Ethan Parker's innocence. A few shared it, some questioned it, but most scrolled past. The mob had already moved on. Ethan read the words with shaking hands, tears slipping down his face. Too late, he whispered. The damage had already been done, scars etched into his name, his life, his soul. The silence of apologies was deafening. No brand, no reporter, no friend stepped forward to say they were wrong. The truth didn't set him free. It only reminded him of what was stolen. Rachel Miles continued her climb, smiling in interviews as if she had never held the knife. Reporters praised her resilience. Fans flooded her pages with support. Ethan watched from the shadows, bitterness burn in his chest. "You took everything," he muttered, but her smile never faltered. The world loved a survivor, even if survival meant standing on his ruined body. He realized justice would never come from them. It had to come from himself. Yet anger was a heavy crown, and Ethan no longer had strength to wear it. He turned away from the screen, shutting her image out, knowing she had already won the world, but she could not erase his truth. The outsider's words echoed, "Proof means nothing if no one listens." Ethan realized he was both erased and remembered, a ghost carried by lies. He walked through school halls once filled with fans, now lined with whispers. His footsteps echoed louder than voices, the weight of absence crushing him. Emily Carter gave him a small nod from afar, her eyes heavy with loyalty. He smiled faintly, fragile but grateful. "Thank you," he whispered under his breath, though she could not hear. In a world of silence, her quiet courage reminded him he was not entirely forgotten. Sometimes survival wasn't loud. It was found in the smallest gestures of belief. On the rooftop again, Ethan stared at the skyline, the city buzzing as if nothing had changed. "You erased me," he whispered, his voice drifting into the night. But beneath the exhaustion, something flickered, defiance. He was still breathing, still standing. They could destroy his career, tarnish his name, turn his laughter into ash, but they could not take away the fact that he endured. Ethan pressed his palms to the concrete ledge, trembling but upright. "I'm still here," he whispered again, louder this time. His survival was not applause, not redemption, but resistance. The simple refusal to vanish. The final blow came not with fire, but with a whisper. Ethan Parker faced his reflection one last time, eyes hollow yet burning. He whispered, "You wanted a monster, so you made one." His voice was steady, carrying the weight of betrayal, silence, and survival. He turned away from the mirror, leaving it behind, leaving the boy they erased in the glass. The world would forget his story, bury it under the next scandal. But the scars remained, carved deep into him and into those who watched. The echo of his words lingered like a knife in the dark, unforgettable, impossible to silence.